Miami Condo Mondays is a live podcast on the first workday of the week at 4 p.m. South Florida time. The program features former journalist and current Wall Street consultant Peter Zaleski of the Miami Condo Investing Club and former lender and veteran condo broker Jenny Huertas of CVRRealty.com. Recorded weekly in greater downtown Miami, this 1-hour discussion will provide a refreshing and sometimes controversial perspective on the state of the South Florida condo market from a pair of seasoned real estate professionals who do not always agree. The program won't tell you what to think about the South Florida condo market, but will give you something to think about before buying, selling, taking listings, or financing units. This podcast is not authorized by the Miami real estate industry and will quite possibly annoy many of its figureheads. Welcome to this week's episode of Miami Condo Mondays, broadcast live on the social media accounts of Peter Zaleski and Jenny Huertas.
Happy Monday, Miami. This is Miami Condo Mondays. It's a 1-hour conversation between myself and my partner, Jenny Huertas. She's a broker owner of CVR Realty. I'm Peter Zaleski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. We got you for an hour. What are we going to be talking about today? We are going to be talking about a brand new report that just came out from First Service Residential. This is a massive property management company. It's located in North America, primarily in the United States and Canada. They just released their second annual report, and they're actually giving us the numbers. What should your maintenance fees be? Whether you're in Miami, you're in Fort Lauderdale, you're in Tampa, maybe you're up in Toronto, you could be in Chicago, you might be in New York, you might even be out in Los Angeles. We're going to talk about all the numbers today on Miami Condo Mondays. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, every Monday from 4 o'clock Eastern time or so, we tend to be on Miami time, so we might be running a little bit late. But every Monday, 4 o'clock, you can watch us live on the social media accounts of Peter Zaleski and or Jenny Huertas. We encourage you to subscribe. We also encourage you to like our programming. Our subscribers are growing up, and that must be a sign, Jenny, that people like what we're doing. How are you, Jenny? Happy Monday to you.
It's a happy Monday. Happy Monday. I was just listening to you. Everything is good. And happy to see that people is liking the content. It's nothing like it out there.
Yep, absolutely nothing like it out there. You know, Jenny, one of the many challenges that we face today is, I guess, Amazon. They have their web services. This is those cloud services that they built up, you know, server depots, if you will, built up, and they got some issue. They've been up, they've been down, they've been all around. And the internet service provider we're using to broadcast this actually is on AWS. So when I went into to launch the podcast, it's giving me all these messages that there's all kinds of issues going on. So hopefully we're going to be able to venture on, soldier on beyond that. If for some reason anybody watching this live isn't able to see it, rest assured, we're going to go ahead, we're going to save a copy of it, and we will upload, we'll make it available to you for your consumption. We also post, by the way, on Spotify, so that's another place to find us. So Jenny, what I want to talk about this week is I want to talk about maintenance fees. Maintenance fees are a critical aspect of anybody going in to buy a condo. I always talk about my famous 1% rule. 1% rule is a rule of real estate that says whatever your monthly rent is, it should represent 1% of the value. For instance, if you're getting $1,000 a month in rent, that means your place is worth $100,000. You get $10,000 a month rent, that means your place is worth $1 million. Now, one of the things that kicks in all the time when you're trying to look at a condo investment is maintenance fees. A lot of people don't like to buy into condos. They prefer to go into a single-family house or some sort of multifamily because they don't have to deal with that maintenance fee aspect. Now, what is the maintenance fee exactly? What maintenance fees are is a turnkey white glove service where you don't have to do anything. Basically, you're paying the money, and that money is going towards somebody else doing it all. And what do I mean? Well, if you're in a house, you have to make sure when the hurricane's coming to prep the building or prep your house. When the lawn has to be cut, when the lawn has to be watered, when there's some sort of repair that has to be done to the outside structure. In a condo, you're still responsible within the walls, but you're not responsible on the outside. That's where your maintenance fees sort of are used. They're also used for security. They are used, Jenny, for concierge. They're used for potentially the valet service. Maybe not necessarily for the parking, but more so for that valet to be sitting there outside the front door. So when any guests come in, they're able to take your car and kind of do their thing. Now, keep in mind, your guest still probably is going to have to pay. They're probably still going to have to tip. But there's a fee that's collected by the company to provide the valet people there. What does maintenance fee also cover? Jenny, it covers the property taxes. It covers the insurance of your buildings. So when you go to a condo and you own a condo and you get a property tax bill, keep in mind that property tax bill is for your particular space. It does not include all the common areas. Unlike a church, which pretty much gets some tax break, a condo association is not getting tax breaks. So if you think about it, when you're in a condo and you get a property tax bill, you're actually paying two property taxes. One property tax is for the common areas. The other property tax is for within your particular unit. Jenny, another thing that that maintenance fees cover is the utilities, the electricity, the water bill. Maybe you went to the pool at your condo. Maybe it's heated. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's clean. Every single time that guy pulls up in a pickup truck, pulls out his bucket of chlorine and brings a net and walks out to your pool and skims it while he's playing on his phone, your maintenance fees are actually paying for that. So is when you get out of the pool, you go into your gym. If maybe you have a waterfront or an oceanfront condo project, maybe you want to take a shower before you go up to your place so you don't get sand everywhere. When you go in there and take that shower, you sit in the steam room or the gym. All of that is covered by your maintenance fees. So maintenance fees are a critical aspect of what it's like living into a condo. And again, a lot of investors don't like condos because they would rather do it themselves. They think they're going to be able to save money, and or they go in thinking that they have all the time in the world and they can actually dedicate it to doing it themselves, DIYing it. Jenny, your reaction to my description of maintenance fees and how they sort of incorporate into the lifestyle living in a condominium.
Yeah, it is totally correct. They pay the bill for the water most of the time. Your maintenance includes the water, the hot water in the condo, water and hot water. Some of them don't. They do have separation, but most of them do. And yes, that's the living is very comfortable because if you have to travel, you just close your door and everything is taken care of, and you pay for that. So that's the good part. The bad part is how they go up.
Yeah, well, and they never go down. They
No.
always go up. Generally speaking, they're always going up, much like insurance.
Mhm.
And increasingly, much like the grocery store. Every time you go to the grocery store, everything costs so much. Although I will say eggs are now down to $2.50 a dozen, is what I've noticed. You go to certain places, they might be $4. You got to kind of know how to navigate. And speaking of navigating, that's what you have to do when you're looking at a condominium. If you are somebody who's in the market, or maybe somebody
Yeah.
who already purchased a condo, you might be just thinking all the maintenance fees are the same. And let me tell you, they are not the same. They can vary greatly. What are some of the factors that could impact it? Well, it could be the age of the building. If the building's too old and it's got all kind of work to be done, and maybe it's a higher risk, the insurance might be greater. Maybe your roof, the rooftop, maybe there's some issues there. Maybe the insurance company's giving you 6 months to fix it before they dump you on the insurance. So you have to go ahead and do it. Maybe you were somebody who drives a car, and maybe you've been in a situation where you got a little fender bender, and if you go to the insurance company, it's going to effectively cost you more in the future because you filed a claim
Mhm.
rather than simply paying and keeping your driving record clean. So these are issues you have to factor in, and who decides how the money's going to be used and where it's allocated and what's necessary, what's not necessary. Is it a posh building? Is it not a posh building? All of that, it's going to factor into maintenance fees, and decisions going to be made by the Condo Board Association president, as well as all the other board members. But again, it goes back to our approach, which is you find a building that makes sense, and then from there, you focus your search based on units within those buildings that have met your seal of approval. Way too many buyers, Jenny, I would tell you, at least my opinion, and I want to get your feedback, because you're actually on the ground. I'm more sitting back on the perch, stroking my my increasingly gray goatee about what's going on. But you're actually out there dealing with the customers. You're out there dealing with the renters. You're out there dealing with
Yeah.
everybody. And by the way, if anybody does come to me looking for business, I refer everything to Jenny. Her and I have been partners for long, going back to the condo vulture days prior to the Great Recession, or right at the Great Recession. So if you are in the market for a property, reach out to Jenny at cvrrealty.com, cvrrealty.com, and her nameplate will be at the bottom when you look at the recorded version of this. So Jenny, what are your sort of thoughts about the maintenance fees and how critical they are, especially when you're determining which buildings ought to be on your short list for you to focus your attention on if you are in the market to buy?
Yeah, they can maybe a deal breaker sometimes, depending on how the building is managing certain property. Some buildings are very well maintained, some of them are not. And yeah, so they can be in the same row, in the same street. So you have to see what the history, how they are with the people that work there and with the guests and all that. And they're budget conscious. If because there is a lot of egos in these condo associations when the people
No.
is when the people start voting, like we want this sort of furniture on the so it's like a fight for the furniture on the pool or whatever. Most people, to be honest with you, most people don't even know or care, or they don't go to the meetings, and then the only thing that they care is that line where it says your type of unit and how much you're going to pay on the next year. Because they send you the paperwork in October. So by now, we all know how much is going to be the budget for 2026. So you just look at that line and hopefully they work out everything that they needs to be done in the building. Yes, it is a major issue because depending on the amount that you pay, that's going to be, if you are an investor, you need to mind because you and the rent, that maintenance fee is included in your rent price. So is you have to do the numbers, and even if it's a 1% of the value, you find that 1%, then you have to pay taxes and you have to pay maintenance on the top of it.
Yeah. And just so everybody's sort of clear, I'm not an attorney, talk with your attorney, but what I would tell you is in addition to maintenance fees, you got something called a special assessment. Special assessment is a situation that suddenly arises, and it's a one-time hit. And as a result, the board will go ahead and they'll put in place a special assessment. Once that special assessment comes, you have to not only pay your maintenance fee, which is a constant, but now you're going to need to catch up because they need extra cash to cover something. Say, for instance, maybe you have a car and maybe your car broke down, or maybe somebody ran into you. You got to put it in the shop. Now you need to get a rent-a-car. You need to do something like that. Well, maybe your insurance doesn't cover your rent-a-car, so then you have to turn around. You have to actually rent the car yourself and hope that the other person's insurance will cover it, assuming you're the one who got hit. Now, that would be an example of a special assessment. It's something that wasn't budgeted in. It wasn't something that was expected. But lo and behold, it's a cost that has to be dealt with relatively immediately, hence the special assessment. So don't confuse the two. Special assessment is one thing, and it's a one-time thing. It'll typically last for a year or two, maybe a little bit longer, depending. And then the other thing is going to be the maintenance fee, which is a constant. It's a constant burn. And Jenny, ever since that Surfside condo collapsed back in June of 2021, where nearly 100 people died, and there was a $1 billion settlement paid out to the families of the victims, the insurance companies have made a real point to try to understand what it is exactly that they're insuring. Now, remember, when an insurance company insures a building, they're insuring the building. When you as an individual go ahead and take out insurance policy, that's for your space inside the building. So it's almost two-layered. Think of the building as the umbrella, and then you're just a small little component underneath that overall massive organization. So that's how everything is ultimately going to be impacted. But once Surfside went down in June of 2021, the insurance companies had to figure everything out. They put pressure, I would argue, on the state legislature. State legislature has gone forward. They put in place a whole variety of issues, including something called the Structural Integrity Reserve Study, if you're in the state of Florida, as well as a milestone inspection. Let me keep it real simple for you. A Structural Integrity Reserve Study going forward is a report and a study that's going to need to be done every 10 years. Every 10 years, it will be based on your certificate of occupancy and or the study you've done because of the new law. Now, all the condo associations, if they were built on or before July 1st of 2022, they'll have to do one of these structural integrity reserve studies. So even if you came online in January of 2022, you still have to do one of these studies. Why? Because they're setting the baseline. They're trying to set up from the beginning, okay, this is where we are as we kind of go forward. And now something else that's coming to mind is something called a milestone inspection report. That comes at year 30 of a building coming online and getting its certificate of occupancy. Jenny, a little interesting tidbit. People in Miami-Dade and Broward County, they're well aware of something called the 40-year recertification. Yeah. 40-year recertification was something that was pretty much a phenomenon, as far as I know, in the state of Florida, only in Miami-Dade and Broward County. And the reason it came about, I was asking AI about it and I was reading about it. In the 1970s, apparently, there was an office building that federal government was renting, and the building collapsed. How old was the building when it collapsed? It was about 40 years old. So as a result, the local government politicians, they decided to put in place a certain requirement that said when a building gets up to 40 years old, they have to go ahead and they have to do an inspection. Why? Because that's the age of the building when it collapsed.
Right.
So longest time going forward in Miami-Dade County and in Broward, you had this rule at the 40-year mark, a building had to be inspected to make sure it was safe. It didn't really occur throughout the rest of the state. Now, all of a sudden, Surfside goes down. Once Surfside goes down, the state legislature, and I'm guessing at the urging of the insurance industry, they put in place something called a milestone inspection report, which has to be done at year 30. This is something brand new. So structural integrity reserve study every 10 years, milestone inspection at year 30. The way I like to talk about it, Jenny, and describe it, and it sticks in your head and not everybody likes it, but a structural integrity reserve study, a SIRS, that every 10 years, that's like going for an inspection. Going for an inspection, like going to the doctor. They're going to draw blood. They're going to check stuff out. Okay, this is what we see. This is what we got to deal with, yada, yada, yada. Well, as part of that structural integrity reserve study, by the way, they also tell you as part of the name structural integrity, that's like, how's the building standing? What's the facade like? What's the elevator? All that. But also there's the word reserve, which means they're going to turn over the findings, a licensed architect, licensed engineer. They're going to go ahead and they're going to turn it over to a financial person who will then give you an estimated budget. What's it going to cost to fix this thing? How long will it last? What should you expect? And that's how they get these, that's how they come up with their maintenance fees so they can sort of anticipate it. So that's structural integrity reserve study. That's like going to the doctor for a checkup. Now, when you get to the milestone inspection at year 30, that I would equate to probably like a colonoscopy. That's like something you don't want to do. You have to do it when you get to a certain age. You have to go in there. You have to go through the whole process. It's not enjoyable, but it's just the rules of engagement for kind of doing business. And that's what you have to do at year 30 now for the milestone inspection. So typically a milestone inspection will lead to possibly a special assessment, but most likely an increase in maintenance fees. Why? Because the experts, remember, licensed architect, licensed engineer, they see what's wrong. They turn it over to financial people. Financial people say, this is what's going to cost to fix. They then turn over a study to the condo association board. Condo association board has it. And then they have to figure out, okay, how the hell are we going to pay for this? What is the timeline to pay for this? Now, in the past, which some would argue led to the collapse of that tower in Surfside, what it was is that the boards were being notified of some of the issues. They simply didn't have the cash, so they had the option to defer. They simply said, kind of like the feds are doing right now with the government shutdown. Well, it's fine. We don't need to do anything. We'll just look the other way. And that's what happened. And many would argue that's what contributed to the collapse of the tower, amongst other things, including design and some movements that they did with planters and things like that. But that's basically how it plays out. And I think, Jenny, and I want to get your opinion on it, going forward, I think maintenance fees are going to become more and more of an issue right there with age. Realtors used to say location, location, location. Take that location, location, location. Put in the back of the line. I would argue you put the age of the building important. Remember, 30 years milestone inspection. That's like the midlife crisis. We don't know how long buildings are going to last, but I will tell you in places in Asia, including Hong Kong, they have a shelf life buildings of about 60 years or so, 50 to 60 years. So year 30 is really kind of a critical point in the building's outlook. Now, maybe it gets taken down because of simply changing demographics, changing market conditions. Maybe it becomes obsolete, or maybe we get to the point someday where a building basically has a certain lifespan, and after that, you take it down. It's not safe anymore. It's not cost effective. You get rid of it, just kind of like a used car. So Jenny, any thoughts about sort of the case and the picture I'm painting before we get into the maintenance fees?
Yes, and I probably want to add that before a lot of the buildings, they have, buildings where they are, the first year they have reserves because the new owners have to pay 3 months reserves when they close. But after that, they use those reserves for an emergency, whatever it is, a flooding or whatever it is. Now, after subside and all what happened there, now the buildings have to have reserves. This is not optional anymore. So that's part of the cost, and that's why the maintenance fee on the last 5 years is almost 40% more.
It's going up a lot. And with it going up this much, you have this First Service Residential coming out with reports now, sharing information based on the projects that they manage. And they're managing, I think it's over 1,000 condo associations throughout Canada and and the United States. So they came up with these numbers. And, back in 2008, 2009, during the Great Recession, I had banks coming to me and asking me, because they were, typically when you go ahead and you buy a condo of some sort, you're going to get a mortgage. But if that dollar amount is too high, then this group Fannie Mae, who typically buys the mortgages from the banks and they sit on them, if the condo price or the terms were different than what Fannie Mae accepts, the bank would have to hold it, and the bank would take a chance taking a mortgage simply because they don't want to lose the client. They don't want that client shopping somewhere else and then
Right.
potentially taking their cash out of the bank A and putting it in bank B because of the mortgage. So some of these banks, they took on condo loans that they weren't necessarily comfortable with, and they had all kind of questions about, how good is the condo association? And you can't really figure it out other short of a condo questionnaire. With the Surfside collapse, there's been some legislation. Things are becoming much more available, but still not to the point where you can kind of compare apples to apples. And
Right.
where I'm going with this is back in 2008, 2009, 2010, I wanted to come up with this concept where we could rate condo associations based on how they're being
I
managed
remember, yeah.
financially. So First Service, for the second year in a row, they've released this report. So it really seems like we're moving to the case, or to the point where we're soon going to be able to evaluate condo associations that are well run, and therefore they'll get a higher valuation, and those that are poorly run will get a worse valuation. And that's probably how the game's going to be played out. So I want you to think, if you're coming to visit or if you live here, next time you look at a whole series of towers, whether it be down in the greater downtown Miami area, maybe it's Brickell Avenue, maybe you're over in Miami Beach, maybe you're in Sunny Isles, you're standing in the Pollo Tropical, which is one story, and you're looking across the street at 50-story towers. I want you to remember, not all these buildings are the same. Each one of them is individually operated. It's managed. Think about like stocks in the stock market. You got, I don't know how many thousands of stocks there are, but they're not all the same. And that's the way you need to look at condo associations. And maintenance fees, I would argue, give a good reflection about exactly how the building